We're now going to look at the rise of Islam, the term Islam implying submission to God. And we're going to be making connections, such as how does the rise of Islam affect ideas of order, societal order in the region and beyond? How does its rise demonstrate adaptations, both for Muslims coming in contact with others, as well as those others, Europeans and beyond, who come in contact with Islam? And what might be its appeal in an era that had never seen it before? Muhammad, who becomes known as the first prophet, is born in the 6th century, and he is understood within Islam as the last in a long line of prophets. But his history doesn't start out that way for many. He was born in the Quraysh region of the Arabian Peninsula in Mecca, but he was orphaned at a rather young age. This, in and of itself, is going to affect his outlook on the world. Later, he marries Khadija, who is a businesswoman, who actually he works with, and also is his first convert. Now, his personality, we might say, demonstrates that he was interested in things like the meaning of life questions long before he became a prophet. He was also interested, given his own history, in those who were more marginalized or the less fortunate. The geographical context is, again, the Hijaz region of the Arabian Peninsula. And this was a region where many pilgrims and traders passed through. And the Quraysh basically had kind of a lock on that trade that made them a significant tribe in the region. Now, the pre-Islamic social traditions that are also going to affect Islam have to do with the prioritization of family line connections, silsilas in Arabic, or fakhr, the boasting of the merits of the forefathers. This pride in family and lineage is going to prove very important, not only to the rise of Islam, but even today. Now, religiously, the Prophet had been exposed to pagan worship, the Kaaba, today associated with Islam, and even the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, was understood by Muhammad to have originally been built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, and then denigrated to pagan worship. And Muhammad understood in his view that he was restoring it to its proper use. But Muhammad was also exposed to the monotheistic views of Christians and Jews within the Arabian Peninsula, and especially because so many moved through Mecca. He was also exposed to Gnosticism and other mystery religions as well, including he also was exposed to Zoroastrianism. So this broader religious exposure also affects Muhammad's understanding of the world, as well as the development of the Quran. Now, the revelations that become part of the Quran begin in 610. It's generally understood that his audience was Arab, and that Muhammad assumed a knowledge of, and even an acceptance of, monotheistic beliefs given the larger context of where he was living. In other words, monotheism would not have been something that was totally foreign or outside the experience of Arabs, even if they were polytheists. It was orally transmitted until Uthman in the mid-7th century, and then it was written down. Now, the Quran itself stresses the striving, the individual as well as collective striving towards God and towards improving one's life. This idea of the necessity of group reformation, the group being the ummah, or the community of believers, includes an individual relationship with God, but that relationship and the potential is maintained by the group expectations as well. In the Quran, we see references to Jesus, Mary, Adam, Abraham, and others that would be familiar to those that are referred to in Islam as the people of the book. The Hijra in 622, and that begins the first year of the Islamic calendar, is when Muhammad and those who are now part of his company travel, they're sort of kicked out of Mecca, and they travel to Medina. And this move implies, for many, personally and collectively, abandoning the tribal bonds. Remember how important family connections were in those pre-Islamic traditions. And what are they abandoning the tribal bonds for? They're abandoning them for the ummah, the community of believers. But also this is linked to the raiding and mercenary tradition that is also embodied in this hijra. In 630, Muhammad and, again, his followers have increased. They've increased their power militarily and otherwise, and they return to Mecca and capture it. This is a significant shift as it sets Muslims on a course that politically and economically threatens other areas. So what about that expansion? And this is done especially under Muhammad's successors. And we might also consider, how long does Islam remain Arab-centered, Arab-focused as it was initially, and how quickly it becomes global? So again, those societal order issues too. Why might Islam be attractive, but also as a political and military structure, how is Islam going to contend with so many who are not Muslim? So in the early years, under what is termed the rightly guided caliphs, the Arabian Peninsula it sees the expansion of Islam, especially under Abu Bakr, who is Muhammad's father-in-law. Then next comes Egypt, Palestine, and Persia, up until about 661 in the 7th century, under Umar, Uthman, and Ali. And then finally, we see a rather expansive development of Islam from the Atlantic Ocean to the Oxus River, then and in the coming centuries. Now, another dynasty that develops within Islam is the Umayyad dynasty that is strong until about 750. It uses Damascus, in present-day Syria, as its center, and there are lots of contentions for power, and some of those contentions come under that heading of who's going to be in charge, Arabs or non-Arabs, can both actually be in charge. But this is also the era where we see the split between Shi'is and Sunnis. It has already begun, but it is formalized in this era. Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad and the son of Ali, the fourth caliph, is killed at Karbala in 680. What has happened is an army that was sent by the Umayyad caliph, Yazid I, comes into an area and attacks people that many perceive as being quite helpless at the time. So Hussein, leading this other group, is seen as a martyr and Yazid as a murderer, even though both would be understood to be Muslims at that time. It is this event that formalizes the split and renders it permanent. And the issue at hand, among many, but this is the most important, is who counts as a legitimate ruler. In the Shi'i view, this should be based in the direct lineage to Muhammad in some way or form. In the Sunni view, it can be the most worthy individual, even if there is not a direct line to Muhammad. Now, there are other issues, including political and military power, but that issue is at the core of this split and remains with us today. Between 750 and the 13th century, we see the rise of the Abbasids, and the Abbasids, as an Islamic empire, really create a place for themselves, with Baghdad as its center, and also within Baghdad and throughout the empire, they're rather tolerant of other religions, especially in contrast with the Christians in other areas of the world, who often are persecuting not just Jews and Muslims, but Christians who don't seem to match the ideals of their own Christian beliefs. There certainly were benefits to conversion, however, and as Christian leaders shut down pre-Christian knowledge in Europe, such as Greek philosophy and their texts, it is retained in the Islamic world, and this creates the possibilities of the later European Renaissance. So overall, the rise of Islam creates new contentions, but many Christians and Jews find protection and opportunity in lands overseen by Muslims, given the intense persecution under some Christian leaders in Europe and elsewhere. So if we pull back the lens from Europe, we see how much its rise affects Europe and competing understandings of Christianity. Under the Abbasids, Islamic forces will press far into France from the west and far into Eastern Europe as well. Islam changes Europe, also allowing the later Renaissance to begin.